When Donald Trump heard the news about the little boy and the toy wall, he was sitting in the back of a private plane somewhere over Ohio, sipping Diet Coke and flipping through news clippings his assistant had printed. Most of them were garbage. Political attacks, fake polls, more drama in Washington. But one headline caught his eye. Boy builds Trump wall in backyard to keep sadness out. He paused, then read it again. The article came from a local Ohio blog. It talked about a 9-year-old boy named Luke from the outskirts of Dayton who had been struggling after his dad left. He started building a wall in the backyard with old plastic toy bricks. It wasn't political. It wasn't even meant to be funny. The boy told his teacher it was to keep the sad stuff from coming in. And when asked what he wanted to call it, he said, Trump's wall. Because he doesn't let bad things through. Trump put the paper down, folded it, thought for a long second. Then he looked at his aide. Find me that kid. Luke Parker was a quiet boy. Thin, pale, hair too long for school code. He used to smile more. That's what his mom said. She worked nights at the local grocery store and did everything she could to keep food on the table after her husband left last year. Nobody saw it coming. One night he was there. The next, he was gone. No note. Just a voicemail saying he needed time. Then, nothing. Luke stopped talking much after that. Wouldn't go out to play. Didn't care about cartoons. Just sat in the dirt behind their rented house, building. His mom thought it was just a phase, until she looked closer. The toy bricks were stacked carefully. He made tiny signs, little patrol towers out of cardboard. He even painted the word Trump across one side in red marker. She posted a picture online. It got shared once, then again. Then it spread like wildfire. Everyone had an opinion. Some thought it was cute, some were angry, others mocked it. But Trump? He saw something different. He saw a kid trying to build a future, not just a wall. 10 days later, a big black SUV rolled up quietly to the Parker house. No fanfare, no press. Just 2 Secret Service men, a quiet aide, and Donald Trump himself in a dark overcoat and red tie, standing there holding a sheet of paper with a printed picture of the wall. Luke was outside, cold wind blowing. He had a hoodie on, gloves with holes in them, kneeling in the dirt, adjusting bricks. He didn't see the SUV. He didn't hear the footsteps, but he felt a shadow stretch across the ground, looked up, and froze. Mind if I help? Trump said. Luke blinked, looked at the face, then the tie, then the hair. He didn't speak, just nodded once, slowly. Trump knelt beside him, took off his coat, rolled up his sleeves, picked up a brick. I used to build things too, he said. Big things, with steel and concrete. But I never made one this important. Luke finally spoke. It's not a real wall. Trump smiled. Some of the best ones aren't. They worked in silence for a bit. Luke showed him where the gaps were. Trump handed him bricks. His Secret Service detail stood at a distance, trying to pretend this was normal. Inside, Luke's mom looked through the window, mouth open. She grabbed her phone, hands shaking. Didn't even know who to call. Her son was building a toy wall with Donald Trump. Word didn't get out right away. Trump made sure of it. He didn't want cameras, didn't want applause. Just wanted to meet the boy, understand him. After about an hour, Trump dusted his hands off, looked at the small plastic wall. It's not about the bricks, he said. It's about what you're trying to protect. Luke nodded. I don't want any more sad. I get that, Trump said quietly. I've been there too. Later that night, Trump sat down with Luke's mom at the kitchen table. She made instant coffee, apologized for the mess, and tried not to cry. Trump listened, asked questions, took notes, found out her landlord was raising the rent, found out she was working 2 jobs and still falling behind, found out she hadn't heard from her husband in months. Before he left, Trump gave her a folded note. "Don't open this until I'm gone," he said. Then he walked back to the SUV, climbed in, and vanished into the night. The next morning, she opened the note. Inside was a signed check, more than enough to cover the rent for a year, and a name of a lawyer who would help her track down her missing husband and get legal protection. At the bottom, in blocky handwriting, "You're not alone. Keep building. Donald J. Trump." Luke went to school the next day and didn't say much. But, at recess, he told his teacher, "Donald Trump helped me build my wall." She smiled politely, thought it was just imagination. But Luke smiled back for the first time in months, and kept smiling. What the world didn't know was that this visit wasn't a stunt. It wasn't politics. It wasn't a photo op. It was a quiet moment of kindness, and it wouldn't be the last. Because in the weeks that followed, other surprises started happening. A local playground that had been closed for years suddenly reopened with brand new equipment. A grocery card showed up at the Parkers' front door every Saturday. A job offer came in for Luke's mom from a nearby small business that somehow heard about her from a friend. Trump never said a word publicly, but Luke knew. He started drawing again, pictures of the wall, of Trump standing beside him, of sunshine and no sad. And every time someone asked about the bricks in the backyard, Luke would say the same thing. "They're still working. They keep the good stuff in." And somewhere far away, Donald Trump kept a photo of that plastic wall in a folder labeled "Real Wins." And this was just the beginning. The morning after Trump left, the Parker house felt different. The air seemed lighter. Luke woke up before his alarm, brushed his teeth without being asked, and walked straight to the backyard. The wall was still there, exactly how they left it. He knelt beside it again, not to fix it, just to be near it. Like it had power now, like it mattered. His mom stood by the back door, coffee in one hand, the folded check still on the kitchen table. She hadn't slept much, couldn't stop thinking about the visit, about the way Trump had listened, not talked, just listened. When the world saw him on stage, they saw the performer. She saw the man, the dad, the builder, and now, the helper. By noon that day, the landlord called, but not to raise the rent. He apologized, said someone had paid it in advance for the year, said a foundation had reached out and wanted to help improve the home. New paint, safer locks, even help with groceries. The mom cried quietly after she hung up. Meanwhile, Luke took a picture of the wall on his mom's old phone and printed it at the library. He folded it into his backpack and carried it to school like treasure. During art class, he asked to stay in and draw. The teacher said yes. He worked for 30 minutes straight. When she walked by, she saw what he had made. It was a drawing of Trump sitting beside him, both of them building the wall together. In bold red crayon across the top, he wrote, "My wall keeps sad out. Mr. Trump helped." She took a picture of it and posted it online, said nothing political, just added, "This boy hasn't smiled in months." Yesterday, he did. It exploded overnight. The story had already gone around once, But now it came back with fire. Major outlets picked it up. Commentators started debating it. But this time, nobody could spin it. There was no campaign, no speech, no cameras, just a moment. Trump watched the headlines from a hotel room in Kentucky. He didn't say much to his team. Just turned to his aide and said, "Get me a printer. I want that drawing." By the next day, it was framed, hung in his office, right beside a signed photo of his father. "This is the stuff that counts," he said to no one in particular. Back in Ohio, Luke's mom got another call. This one from a man named Vince, who said he was a veteran and ran a small construction firm nearby. Said he heard about her son. Said he knew what it meant to build walls when life falls apart. Offered her a job doing administrative work. Good hours. Decent pay. Said he didn't usually do this kind of thing, but a friend of a friend made a call. She accepted. The house felt warmer that week. Luke started sleeping through the night. He even let his mom cut his hair. They watched the news together for the first time in forever. And when a clip came on showing Trump speaking at a rally, Luke whispered, "That's my friend." His mom didn't correct him. One night, she found a letter on the kitchen table, folded and sealed with tape. It was from Luke. The handwriting was messy but clear. "Dear Mr. Trump, thank you for helping me with my wall. You made me feel like I matter. I wish you could come to school and help my friends too. Some of them are sad like me. Maybe you could visit, or send something. I think it would make them smile. You are my hero. Luke." She didn't know what to do with it. But a few days later, a letter came in the mail. No return address, just a simple gold seal on the back. Inside was a typed note. "Dear Luke, thank you for the letter. I'm proud of your wall, but more proud of your heart. I've sent something to your school. Keep building. You matter. Your friend, Donald J. Trump." That Friday, the school received a large crate marked "For Luke's Classroom." Inside were brand new art supplies, books, and tiny toy bricks, enough for every student to build their own wall. On top was a note. "Every wall tells a story. What will yours say?" The school held a special day just for Luke's class. They called it Build Day. Kids wrote their wishes on bricks. Some wrote peace. Some wrote home. One boy wrote, "Please bring my dad back from jail." Even the principal cried. Luke was asked to speak at the assembly. He stood on the stage, holding his red drawing, and said only 6 words. "If I can smile, so can you." The auditorium erupted in cheers. And that night, back at the Parker house, Luke added something new to the wall. A tiny flag, one he made himself, blue paper, white stars, and in black marker, the word HOPE. Then he stepped back, saluted it, and whispered, "Good night, Mr. Trump." 2 weeks after the school assembly, Luke's story had made its way into homes across America. News anchors talked about it, radio hosts debated it. Some rolled their eyes, others wept. But in small towns and big cities, something was happening. Kids started building toy walls in their backyards. Parents posted pictures. Messages like "Hope lives here" and "No more sad" started showing up scribbled in crayon and sidewalk chalk. The internet called it the Little Wall Movement. But Luke didn't know that. He just kept building. One afternoon, he came home from school and found a small box on the porch. No label, no note. Just a tiny golden sticker with a single letter T. Inside was a red Lego-style brick with his name carved into it. And underneath, another note. "This is your cornerstone. Every great builder needs one. Proud of you. DJT. Luke ran inside, holding it high over his head like a trophy. His mom was in the kitchen cooking macaroni from a box. He showed it to her, and she hugged him so tight it made him giggle. Then they both cried. Across the country, in a private office overlooking the New York skyline, Trump stood at the window, arms behind his back, watching the sun go down. His aide entered quietly. "Sir, about the boy." Trump turned. "What about him?" "We're getting letters, emails. People want to know if you'll speak about it. Maybe tie it into a speech. Could be powerful." Trump thought for a moment, then shook his head. "Not yet. Let it grow." Luke's mom started a journal. Not for her. For him. She wrote down everything that had happened. The visit, the wall, the note, the drawing, the jobs, the news stories, even the quiet moments, like when Luke whispered, "I feel safe now." She planned to give it to him when he turned 18. Said it would remind him that hope isn't magic. It's built, one brick at a time. Then one morning, something happened that nobody expected. Luke was invited to Washington. A letter came in a white envelope with the presidential seal. Inside was a formal invitation to attend a special children's event at the Capitol. His name was handwritten. His story had reached someone who still had enough pull to make things happen. They offered to fly him and his mom out. Hotel, meals, everything covered. Luke packed his wall drawing and his carved brick. His mom packed tissues. When they arrived, Luke couldn't stop staring. He pointed at every statue, took pictures of every flag. At the event, he met other kids with stories. A girl who beat cancer, a boy who saved his sister from a fire, a young inventor, but none of them knew quite what to make of Luke. One asked, "Wait, you built a wall with Trump?" Luke nodded. "It keeps the sad out." That night, there was a reception in a large hall. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, classical music in the background. Luke wore a new suit, donated by a local tailor who heard the story and insisted. His mom wore a simple navy dress. She looked around nervously, clutching her purse. Luke just looked up and whispered, "Do you think he'll be here?" She didn't answer. But then the room went quiet. Every head turned. And there he was, Donald J. Trump, walking in without announcement, flanked by 2 Secret Service agents, nodding politely as he moved through the crowd. Some people clapped, others gasped. But Luke? He ran, right through the crowd, right past the velvet ropes, right up to Trump, and hugged him. Trump chuckled, bent down, and whispered something in his ear that only Luke heard. Then he stood up, put his hand on the boy's shoulder, and addressed the room. "This is Luke. He's not a politician. He's not a millionaire. He's not on TV. But he built something more powerful than most people ever will. He built hope, and he did it with toy bricks and a broken heart. That takes courage." Silence. Then applause. Thunderous applause. Luke didn't know what to do, so he held up his drawing and said, "This is us. Me and Mr. Trump." A reporter snapped a photo. That photo went viral in less than 20 minutes. And for the first time in a long time, America saw something different. Not division, not anger, but a little boy, and a man who listened. The next day, Luke and his mom flew home. When they landed, their porch had flowers on it, notes, a basket of cookies, even a letter from a former teacher who said, "You've inspired a whole town, kiddo." But Luke didn't want a parade. He wanted bricks. So he went out back, took the red cornerstone, and started building again. But this time, not just one wall. He started building a gate. His mom asked why. He smiled. So people can come in? Only the good ones. Then he added a new sign. In bold red letters, it said, Trump's Wall of Hope. Entrance here. A week after returning home, Luke's backyard became something else. It wasn't just a wall anymore. It was a project, a mission, a place where other kids started showing up after school. First it was just 2, then 5, then a dozen. They brought their own bricks, boxes of them, different colors, some old, some brand new. Luke welcomed them all. He gave them roles, some stacked, some decorated, some wrote messages of hope with Sharpies. It became the unofficial headquarters of the Wall of Hope. His mom bought lemonade and snacks with the grocery card, set up folding chairs, turned their tiny backyard into something that felt big, bigger than the news stories, bigger than the town. Parents started coming by, watching from the sidewalk. Some took photos. Others cried quietly. One dad said, "My boy hasn't smiled like this since his mom left." Another said, "Whatever this is, it's healing my kid." Luke didn't say much. He just kept building, focused, quiet, steady, like he knew something they didn't. And maybe he did. Meanwhile, in New York, Trump's team began seeing the ripple effects. Letters. Thousands of them. Some from kids, some from adults, some from teachers, a few from parents whose children had considered ending their lives, until they saw Luke's story. Trump read a letter from a veteran in Arkansas who had lost his home, been abandoned by his family, and was ready to give up. But when he saw the boy building that wall, he bought a pack of toy bricks and started building something in his garage. Not much, just a square. But he wrote, "It gave me a reason to keep going." Trump set the letter on his desk and whispered, "We're gonna need more bricks." That night, he made a few calls. The next day, a shipment left from a warehouse in Missouri. Inside were 500 kits, plastic bricks, message cards, American flags, stickers that said, "Build Hope." Each kit had a card signed, "Keep going. You matter. Donald J. Trump." They weren't sold. They were given away. To churches, to shelters, to schools in towns nobody had heard of. It wasn't a campaign. It wasn't merch. It was something else. Hope distribution. One kit found its way to a Navajo reservation in New Mexico. A teacher there gave it to a boy who had lost his brother in a car crash. He built a circle with the bricks and said, "This is where I remember him." The story made it back to Trump's team within days. Another kit reached a foster home in Pennsylvania. A 7-year-old girl wrote on her brick, "I want a family." A week later, she was adopted. No connection. Just timing. Back in Ohio, Luke received a large envelope. No stamp, no return address. Inside was a laminated map of the U.S. tiny red dots, marked places where walls had been built, dozens, then hundreds. In the corner was a note. "Your wall is everywhere now. DJT." Luke ran his finger across the map, stopped at one dot near Texas, smiled. That weekend, something big happened. His town held an official Wall of Hope Day. The mayor showed up. A Marine color guard raised a flag in the Parkers' backyard. A local bakery donated cupcakes with little toy bricks on top. News vans lined the street, but nobody cared about the cameras. They came for Luke, and for what the wall had become. Trump didn't attend, but he sent a video message. The screen lit up with his face, smiling, calm. He said, "Luke, I don't know if you understand what you've done, but let me tell you, You reminded America what it means to build again. Not just walls, not just homes, but hearts. You reminded us that even the smallest builder can make the biggest difference. I'm proud of you. And I want you to know, you've built more than hope. You've built a movement. Luke's mom cried through the whole message. After the video, Luke was handed a plaque. It read, "Luke Parker, Hope Builder, for reminding us that broken things can still be built better." Luke just nodded. Then he walked back to the wall, added one more brick, and wrote one word on it. Together. Luke's backyard wasn't really a backyard anymore. It had become something sacred. Families drove in from other counties to see the wall. Teachers brought students. Pastors stopped by and asked to pray with the kids. Veterans came and stood quietly, hats over their hearts. There were no admission fees, no speeches, just bricks and names and stories written in Sharpie. It had grown from a small plastic wall to a community monument. The original bricks still sat at the center, untouched. Luke never let anyone move them. "Those are where it started," he said. One afternoon, a girl around his age asked if she could build a tower next to the wall. She said her big brother had died overseas, and she wanted him to be remembered too. Luke handed her a box of bricks and said, "Make it tall." And she did. The first Tower of Hope, painted in red, white, and blue. Soon others followed. A tower for a lost mom. A tower for a soldier who came home different. A tower for a dad in rehab. The backyard started to look like a tiny city of healing. Luke's mom tried to keep up. She cleared space, made hot cocoa for the cold days, put up lights when it got dark earlier. Donations started arriving. Local hardware stores brought canopies. A restaurant brought warm meals on Sundays. A nearby high school shop class even offered to build benches for people who just wanted to sit and reflect. Then, one cold morning, a man in a flannel jacket and faded hat walked up to the gate and asked, "Is this the Trump kids' place?" Luke was kneeling beside the newest tower, tightening a brick. His mom answered, "Yes. Can I help you?" The man held up a photo. It was of a young boy, about Luke's age, smiling. "That's my grandson. He passed last year, cancer. He always talked about Trump, said he was like a superhero, said he wanted to meet him someday. We couldn't make that happen, but I saw your boy on TV. I think he did something close." He knelt beside Luke and said, "Mind if I build one for him?" Luke nodded. "Everybody's welcome." They built it together in silence. The man left a folded photo on top and whispered, "Thanks, kid." That night, Luke sat in his room, looking out the window. Snowflakes started falling. The lights from the yard twinkled. The wall stood tall. The towers stood taller. And behind it all, the little flag he had made months ago still waved in the breeze. He whispered to himself, "This isn't a backyard anymore. It's a beginning." Miles away, in a room lined with gold trim and thick rugs, Trump sat at a desk reviewing letters. His team had compiled a binder, thick, filled with photos of kids building their own walls, photos from hospitals, from farms, from city rooftops. A school in Florida turned their hallway into a wall of hope, each brick signed by a student with a dream. A church in Georgia used the bricks to help members write down their fears, then sealed them into a tower and called it the Healing Post. Trump closed the binder and said, "We need to take this national." His aide looked up. "Sir? Let's build bigger. A program. A foundation. Give kids tools to build more than walls." By the end of the week, A plan was drafted. It would be called the Hope Builders Initiative. It would supply schools and community centers with building kits, lesson plans, and real stories of kids like Luke. Each kit would include a flag, a starter brick, and a message. No matter how small, you can build something that matters. Luke didn't know about the foundation yet, but one morning he received a package in the mail. A wooden box with brass hinges. Inside was a bronze brick, heavy, cold. On one side, his name. On the other, the word legacy. No note, just a tag that read, "This is your cornerstone now. The world is watching what you build next. DJT." Luke showed it to his mom. She held it like it was gold. In a way, it was. That night, Luke placed the brick at the entrance to the wall. He didn't say anything, just saluted, and walked inside. Winter settled over Ohio like a heavy blanket. Snow dusted the rooftops. Breath came out in clouds. But the backyard stayed busy. Kids still came, bundled in coats and scarves, hands in gloves, carrying plastic bricks and stories to tell. Luke never stopped, not even when the snow got deep. He cleared paths through it, shoveled around the towers, made sure the bronze cornerstone was always visible, like a flame that couldn't be buried. One morning, a teacher from a nearby school knocked on the front door. She asked if Luke would be willing to speak to her class. She said her students had watched the videos, read the articles, wanted to hear from the boy who built something when everything else was falling apart. Luke didn't like talking much. He preferred building. But he said yes. That Friday, his mom drove him to the school. He wore a blue sweater, carried a red brick in his backpack. When he stood in front of the classroom, he didn't use notes, didn't recite anything rehearsed. He just held up the brick and said, "This helped me get better." Then added, "If you're sad, you can build too." A girl in the back raised her hand and asked, "What do you do when the sad comes back?" Luke paused, then answered, "You don't tear down the wall. You add to it." The class clapped. Back at home, his mom found a letter in the mail with a golden seal. It was from the Trump Foundation. Inside was an invitation. Luke had been chosen as the first official Hope Builder Ambassador. It meant he would help launch the new national initiative. It meant his wall, the little one in the backyard, would become the model for others. A blueprint, a symbol. The announcement would be made at a special ceremony in Washington, D.C. Luke would be flown out with his mom, given a tour of the Capitol, and introduced by someone who wanted to speak personally. When they arrived, Luke was taken to a green room backstage. There was a podium out front, rows of chairs, news cameras, and standing by the curtain, waiting, was Trump himself. Luke ran to him. Trump knelt down, put his hands on the boy's shoulders, and said, "You've done more good than most adults I know." Luke smiled. "I just kept building." Trump stood and said, "That's the secret. Keep going." When they walked on stage together, the room stood. Not for the man, for the boy, for what he represented. Trump stepped to the mic and said, "There are people who talk, and there are people who build. This young man built hope out of plastic bricks and pain. He turned his backyard into something stronger than steel, a sanctuary. And now we're going to take his idea and spread it everywhere. Because America needs to remember, we don't just fight back, we build forward." He stepped aside. Luke stepped up, nervous, quiet. Then held up a red brick and said, "This helped me. I think it can help you too." That was it. 10 words. and the room thundered with applause. After the ceremony, Luke was taken to a small studio. Trump sat beside him for a special interview. Just the two of them. No journalists, just stories. Trump asked, "What would you say to a kid out there who's hurting right now?" Luke answered, "Start small. 1 brick. That's all it takes." Trump nodded. "I'll remember that." The next day, back in Ohio, Luke returned to the wall. It was quiet again, snow falling softly. He walked up to the bronze cornerstone, brushed off the flakes, and placed a new brick beside it. This one had one word: continue, because he wasn't done. And neither was the wall. Spring came slow, but it came. The snow melted. The towers stood strong. The grass returned. Green peeked through the patches of mud where so many feet had walked, stood, knelt, and built. Luke had outgrown his old jacket. His hair was shorter now. His smile came easier. But the wall, that stayed the same. Except it wasn't just a wall anymore. It had gates, paths, towers, a sign that read, "Welcome to Hopeville." It wasn't a joke. It was a place now. Locals called it that without thinking. The news called it the backyard that became a blueprint. Luke called it his fort. One morning, a white van pulled up in front of the house. A man stepped out wearing a shirt with the Hope Builders logo. He said the foundation was going national. Kits were being sent to schools in all 50 states. They were asking Luke to design a new version of the wall, something that could fit in classrooms, community centers, even small apartments. Luke sat down at the table with a sketch pad and didn't speak for 2 hours. He drew, he erased, he started over. He finally held up a simple model: a half circle, an open arch, a central brick marked with the word "Begin." When asked why it was curved, he said, "Because it should hold you, not shut you out." The team nodded. That would become the new national design. A few weeks later, Luke was flown out again, this time to Texas. A school there had turned their entire gym into a Hope Builders zone. Hundreds of students, hundreds of bricks. They held a special assembly. Local news arrived, the mayor, even a state senator. But what Luke noticed most was one boy in the corner, sitting alone, not building, just watching. After the speeches, Luke walked over and sat beside him. Said nothing at first. Then pulled out 2 bricks. Handed one to the boy. The boy shook his head. "It won't fix anything." Luke nodded. "Maybe not, but it might help." The boy looked at him, took the brick, wrote the word TRUST on it, and placed it down. That photo would later appear on the cover of 3 magazines. Trump saw it and said, "That's the real campaign." Back in Ohio, something unexpected happened. A construction company, anonymously, offered to purchase the land behind the Parkers' rental home. Not to develop, but to expand. They wanted to help build the first permanent Hope Builders Park, a place where families could come and build, reflect, share stories. The town approved it unanimously. Volunteers poured in, carpenters, landscapers, retirees with time and tools. Even a local prison sent nonviolent inmates to help with pathways and benches as part of a work release program. Luke greeted each group with a handshake and a brick. His wall was now a movement, not political, not corporate, just human. One Saturday, as the new park signs were being installed, Luke stood in the center of the yard. He looked around. There were families from other states, grandparents telling stories, a little girl singing quietly as she built a tower for her brother who was sick. a pastor leading a small group in prayer near the bronze cornerstone. His mom stepped beside him. "You okay?" Luke nodded. "I just didn't think it would get this big." She smiled. "You didn't build big. You built real." That night, they sat on the porch. Luke sipped apple juice. His mom held a mug of tea. Lights from the park glowed softly behind them, and then headlights pulled up. A familiar SUV. No announcement, no entourage. Just Donald J. Trump stepping out in a dark jacket and walking up the path. He shook Luke's hand like they were old business partners. Had to see it again. In person. Luke pointed toward the bronze brick. "It's still working." Trump chuckled. "I can see that." They walked through the park together. Quietly. Trump asked questions. Luke answered. They stopped in front of the newest structure, a small circular shelter built by volunteers. "What's this one?" Trump asked. Luke said, "That's the listening circle. Nobody talks until everyone feels heard." Trump paused, then said, "Smart kid." They sat inside. No cameras, no script. Just a boy and a man sitting side by side in a park built from pain, faith, and plastic bricks. And for a moment, they didn't need to say anything at all. Summer brought warmth, but the message stayed the same. The park now had a name carved in stone. Luke Parker Hope Builders Memorial Grounds. Though Luke was still alive, they called it a living memorial, not to loss, but to resilience. More families arrived every week. Veterans, teachers, single parents, people who had lost things and people trying not to give up. They came to build, not walls to keep people out, but reminders to let healing in. The National Hope Builders Initiative launched officially on July 4th. Red, white, and blue kits shipped out to 10,000 schools and 2,000 community centers. The program's slogan was printed across every box in bold black letters. Start small. Build big. Heal together. At the launch event, Trump gave a short speech. No teleprompter, no political fireworks. He simply said, "This started with one boy, one brick, one backyard, and now it's helping build something this country's been missing: togetherness." Behind him stood Luke, a little taller, a little stronger. He wore a white shirt with the words "Hope Engineer" stitched across the front. He didn't say much, just smiled and gave a thumbs up. Reporters asked questions afterward. Why toy bricks? Why not money? Why not something more serious? Luke answered, "Because even kids can build something real. That's serious enough." That quote hit newspapers the next day. In Ohio, the park got a new addition, a memory wall. Visitors wrote names of people they missed or moments they survived. One man drove in from Michigan, a steel worker. He wrote, "Lost my job, lost my marriage, almost lost myself. Then I saw Luke's story. Started building again. Still building now." He left a pair of his work gloves in a plastic box by the wall. Wrote on the label, "For the next guy who thinks he can't do it." Trump received regular updates from the foundation. Numbers didn't impress him much, but the letters did. A girl from Alabama who wrote, "My daddy left. My mom cries. I built a wall in my closet. I think it's helping." A teacher in Nebraska who said, "This is the first time our students have worked together without fighting." A mother in Colorado who wrote, "I built a circle of bricks in my living room. My autistic son sits in it when the world gets too loud. He calls it his safe zone. Thank you." One day, a man named Frank showed up at the Ohio park. Mid-40s, rough beard, eyes like gravel. Asked if Luke was around. His mom hesitated, then called him outside. Frank stood still, didn't speak for a full minute, then held up a photo. It was of Luke, younger, with a man beside him. Luke froze. It was his father. Frank said, "I'm your dad." His mom stepped out, hand over her mouth. Luke didn't move. Frank looked down. "I was weak. I ran. But I saw the news, the photos, the wall. You made something better than I ever did. I didn't come here to ask for anything. Just wanted to say, I see you." He turned to leave, but Luke stepped forward, held out a red brick, said, "You can build too." Frank took it, held it like it was the heaviest thing in the world. That night, he sat beside Luke, near the original wall, and placed his brick beside the bronze cornerstone. No one said a word. The next morning, Luke's mom found him on the porch, staring at the sunrise. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded. "The wall's working again." She smiled. "Always has." The day the wall turned 1 year old, the entire town showed up. What began as a handful of bricks behind a rental home had become a national symbol. There were tents, balloons, volunteers handing out cupcakes with frosting shaped like bricks. Children carried signs that said, "Keep building," and "Hope is real." A country music artist showed up unannounced and sang a song called "Little Hands, Big Walls." The mayor gave Luke the key to the city. Someone unveiled a mural on a nearby building. It showed Luke handing a brick to Donald Trump, with rays of light behind them and the words, "Build Forward," painted across the top. Trump didn't come that day, but a letter did. Delivered by hand, sealed, marked with the presidential crest. Luke opened it in front of everyone and read it into the microphone. "Dear Luke, a year ago you did something small that became something historic. Not because of politics, not because of fame, but because you built with your heart. You reminded us that strength isn't in steel. It's in choosing to keep going. You're a builder, a healer, and a symbol of what's still possible in this country. You didn't just build a wall, you built a movement. I'm proud of you. Keep going. Your friend, Donald J. Trump." The crowd stood and clapped until their hands ached. Luke stepped down, walked to the wall, placed a new brick at the center. He didn't say what was written on it. He didn't need to, because by now, the wall said everything. In the following months, the Hope Builders program exploded. Over 200,000 kids had joined. Every state had at least one Hope Park, modeled after Luke's original. They popped up in old parking lots, in community centers, beside churches. Each had the same mission: give people something to build when their lives feel like they're falling apart. There were now mobile Hope trucks that brought kits to disaster zones and foster homes. A school counselor in Chicago said, "We've seen fewer fights since the kits arrived. It's like they're building what they can't say." A boy in West Virginia wrote on his brick, "This saved me." Luke continued to visit different parks, quietly, unannounced. He'd show up, build a tower, listen to stories, then leave. Some kids didn't know who he was until after. He liked it that way. One evening, Trump called him. Not through an aide, not through the foundation. Directly. Luke answered. "Hello," Trump said. "I just wanted to hear your voice. You're still doing it." Luke replied, "Still building." Trump chuckled. "So am I." They didn't say much more, just a short call. But it mattered. That night, Luke stayed up late drawing. He made a new design, a map, not of America, but of a town called Hopeville. In it were bridges, towers, homes made of bricks, circles instead of fences, arrows pointing inward instead of outward. At the top he wrote, "What if we built a world instead of walls?" His mom found the drawing the next morning. She framed it, hung it beside the front door. A few weeks later, a ceremony was held at the National Hope Builders Conference. It was the first of its kind. Thousands attended. Teachers, parents, kids, mayors, first responders. Every state sent a delegation. The keynote speaker was introduced as the reason we're here. Luke stepped up to the microphone. Still quiet, still humble. He held up a single red brick and said, "When I built my first wall, it was just to keep the sad out. But the truth is, what we build also invites something in: strength, faith, people. I used to think the wall was to protect me. Now I know it was to connect me." He held up his brick. "I still build. I still cry. But I don't give up." And the room erupted in tears and applause. That night, Trump gave the closing address. He stood beside Luke on stage and said, "I've built buildings. I've built companies. I've even built policies. But I've never been more proud of something than this. Because I didn't build this. He did. And you did." He looked at the crowd. And it's just the beginning. Fall returned to Ohio with golden leaves and cool winds, but the park stayed warm. Not from the weather, from the people. There was always someone there, sitting, building, remembering. The original wall stood in the center like a monument. Bricks now sealed in clear coating to preserve their messages. Some faded, some smeared, all sacred. A nearby plaque read, "Started by one boy with a broken heart. Built by a nation ready to heal." Luke walked the paths most evenings, not because he had to, because he wanted to. He greeted visitors with nods, offered bricks to newcomers. Sometimes he sat beside them. Sometimes he listened without saying a word. And sometimes, if the moment was quiet enough, someone would ask him, "Do you still build?" And he'd say, "Every day." Then came the call. Trump was preparing to speak at the biggest rally of the year. Not political, not electoral. Something else. A national gathering for restoration. Families, workers, veterans, all invited. He wanted Luke there, not just in the crowd, but on stage. Luke hesitated. Crowds weren't his thing. Cameras made him anxious. But he said yes. The day of the event, the stadium was packed. Flags waved, voices rose. People chanted not slogans, but words like heal, build, unite. It wasn't a campaign. It was something older, something needed. Trump stepped onto the stage to thunderous applause. He looked stronger than ever, determined, focused. But when he spoke, his tone softened. "I've seen what divides us," he said, "and I've seen what can unite us. Not speeches, not money, not politics, but one boy, one brick, one choice to keep building even when it hurt." Then he gestured to the side. "And now, I want to introduce the boy who reminded us what America still has left." Luke walked out slowly. The crowd rose. Tears streamed down faces. He wore jeans, a white shirt, no suit, just himself. He stood beside Trump and said into the mic, "A brick can do a lot if you use it right." That was it. The crowd roared. And in that moment, something changed. People didn't just see Trump. They saw the fruit of quiet help, of behind-the-scenes kindness, of legacy. After the event, Luke and Trump sat in the back of the SUV, heading to a private dinner. Trump looked out the window, thoughtful. "You know," he said, "I've been called a lot of things, Some good, some bad. But what you built, that's something no one can tear down. Luke replied, "It's not mine anymore. It's theirs now." Trump smiled. That's leadership. That night, the two of them signed a letter together. It would be sent to every Hope Builder site across the country. It read, "Don't stop building. Don't stop believing. Even when no one sees you. Even when no one claps. Brick by brick, you're changing the world. Together." Signed, Luke Parker. Donald J. Trump. Back in Ohio, the Hope Builders Park was upgraded again. A new wing, indoor building space for winter months, therapy rooms where kids could build while talking through hard things, a small chapel for quiet reflection. Luke helped design each space. Nothing fancy, just real. One day, he stood outside the original wall. Beside it was a little boy, alone, holding a single blue brick. Luke knelt beside him. "You building something?" The boy shook his head. "I don't know how." Luke handed him a red brick, said, "Start here." The boy took it, placed it beside his, smiled, and whispered, "It's not so hard." Luke stood, looked around. The park, the people, the towers, the stories. All from a toy brick. All from a hurting boy who didn't give up. And somewhere nearby, Trump stood watching from a distance, hands in his pockets. No cameras, just pride in his eyes. Because this wall? It was never about politics. It was about redemption. And it had been built, brick, by love. Thanksgiving came cold that year, but the Parker house was warm. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and sweet potatoes. The living room had blankets, old movies, and laughter. Luke sat at the table with his mom, carving a turkey donated by a local church. There were extra chairs, extra plates, a neighbor who had lost her husband, a boy from Luke's school whose family was going through hard times. Nobody asked questions. Everyone just came. Because now, that's what the house meant. It wasn't just where the Wall of Hope started. It was where people felt safe. After dinner, Luke stepped out into the backyard. The lights on the towers shimmered in the cold. A layer of frost had settled on the original bricks. He walked the familiar path, past the listening circle, the memory wall, the circle of towers, each one still standing, a year and a half strong. His shoes crunched in the gravel. His breath fogged in the air. He stood in front of the bronze cornerstone, knelt, placed a fresh brick on the ground. It read, "Still here." That weekend, a small film crew arrived. They were making a documentary about the movement. Not about politics, just about the people, survivors, kids, builders. They interviewed Luke on the porch, asked him why he thought the story spread the way it did. He said, "Because people were already hurting. They just needed a reason to build again." They asked what he would say to someone who thought toy bricks were just toys. Luke replied, "Try building with them when you're broken." The clip aired nationally. It went viral again. Trump saw it from Mar-a-Lago, turned to his aide and said, "He's not a kid anymore. He's a builder." Then he made a call, a private one, to a network executive. He said, "I want a new show. Not politics, not drama, just stories of people building hope. Use Luke. Use real people, real stories. No spin, no noise, just bricks and heart." The show aired 3 months later. Title, Brick by Brick. Hosted by Luke Parker. Produced by the Trump Foundation. Every episode featured a new story, a family rebuilding, a veteran healing, a town coming back to life. And every episode ended the same way, with a child placing a brick on a new wall of hope. It became a hit. Even people who disagreed politically tuned in. Because hope didn't care who you voted for. Meanwhile, back in Ohio, something strange happened. Letters began arriving from overseas. A teacher in Poland wrote, "We showed your story in our classroom. Our children started building too." A pastor in South Africa said, "We translated your story into Zulu. Our congregation is now building a garden wall with bricks marked faith and family." Even a group of children in war-torn Ukraine sent a photo. A small wall built with broken concrete and pieces of old wood. On it, a note. "We don't have bricks, but we have hope." Luke read every letter, sorted them, stored them in a wooden box beside his bed. He called it his forever folder. One night, as he sat by the wall with his mom, he asked, "Do you think Mr. Trump knows how far this really went?" She smiled. "He knows, but more importantly, he let you lead it." Luke nodded, then whispered, "I want to build forever." Winter came again, snow heavier than before, the kind that silences towns and makes the world feel still. But the Hope Builders Park didn't stop. They added heaters to the pavilion, covered walkways between towers. Volunteers took shifts shoveling paths. Luke built an encouragement shelter, a small enclosed space with heat, tea, and a notebook on a table. Visitors could write anything. No names, no judgment, just thoughts, pain, thanks, hopes. The notebook filled every 2 days. One entry said, "I came here ready to give up. I'm leaving with one more try." Another read, "Today, my daughter built a tower for her twin brother. We lost him last year. This was the first time I've seen her smile since." Luke read the entries at night, not to feel proud, but to remember. Remember why the first brick mattered. Why Trump's visit changed everything. Why silence can be sacred if it's shared. Then one morning, a call came. Luke was invited to the Capitol. A ceremony, special recognition, Presidential Medal of Service. It wasn't political. It wasn't for press. It was for those who had made real-world, long-term change. Trump would be there. So would veterans, doctors, volunteers. Luke wasn't the youngest recipient ever, but he was the only one who started with a toy brick in a backyard. He didn't ask for new clothes. He wore his Hope Builder's jacket, the red brick pin, a hand-drawn patch that read, "Keep going." His mom walked beside him, proud, calm, still stunned by how far they'd come. At the event, the president of the foundation read aloud, "Luke Parker reminded America that healing doesn't always start with a speech. Sometimes it starts with a whisper, with a child stacking something when he has nothing else. He didn't just build plastic bricks. He built trust. He built faith. He built forward." Trump stood behind the podium next. No notes, just a story. I remember the first time I met him. No cameras, no headlines, just a quiet boy with gloves too big for his hands, putting little bricks in the dirt behind a rented house. He told me he was keeping the sadness out. I didn't tell him then, but what he was really doing was letting the light in. This country has a lot of problems, a lot of loud voices, but what Luke taught us is that quiet building can be louder than shouting. And what he built, none of us will forget. Then he stepped forward, placed the medal around Luke's neck, saluted. Luke didn't speak at the podium. He walked to the center, held up a single red brick and placed it on a table marked Legacy. The crowd rose, clapped, some cried, and Trump, as he watched, whispered to his aide, "That's what a real builder looks like." Back in Ohio, the community held a candlelight walk through the park. People carried candles, held hands, left bricks near the memory wall. One woman read aloud a note from her daughter. "This place fixed my heart." Luke walked quietly behind the group. No spotlight, no fanfare, just one more builder in a world full of broken things trying to be whole. When they reached the bronze cornerstone, everyone placed their bricks down in silence. Then Luke stepped forward, placed his own. It simply read, "Watch what we build next." Spring returned with color and breath. Trees bloomed, paths cleared, and the Hope Builders Park buzzed again with voices, laughter, and bricks clicking into place. The national network was now over 1,000 parks strong. Teachers used them for therapy. Churches used them for outreach. Hospitals used them for healing rooms. A new saying had started spreading, "When words fail, build." It was printed on posters, T-shirts, and even license plates. But Luke still came home every day to the same yard where it all began. He still cleaned the bricks, still read the messages, still waved to new kids who came through the gate wide-eyed and nervous. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. An invitation arrived from the United Nations. A global youth summit, delegates from over 60 countries, each invited for one reason. They had sparked hope. Luke was nominated to speak. At first he didn't want to go. Crowds still made him anxious. But Trump called personally, said, "The world needs to see the kind of leadership you carry. You don't speak loud, but when you do, people stop and listen." So Luke went. He brought his mom. And one red brick. When he arrived at the summit, delegates treated him like a celebrity. Cameras followed him. Kids from Italy, Japan, Kenya, all wanted to take photos. One girl from Brazil said, "We saw your story on the news. My brother built a wall after my parents divorced. It helped us both." When it was time for his speech, Luke walked on stage slowly, looked out at hundreds of faces. Then he held up the brick, said nothing for 5 full seconds, and began, "This is what I used when I had nothing left." He turned it over in his hand. "I didn't build to be noticed. I built to feel better. And then someone noticed anyway." He paused. That someone was Donald Trump. The room hushed. People think of him in a lot of different ways. But to me, he was the first person who knelt beside me in the dirt, picked up a brick, and helped. Quietly. No cameras. No politics. Just help. I'll never forget it. He placed the brick down on the podium. You don't need money to start building. You don't need permission. Just pain. And a little hope. When he stepped away, the entire room stood. Every country. Every flag. Every voice. The world had listened. After the summit, Luke flew home, tired, peaceful, changed. And waiting on the porch when he got back was a simple wooden box. Inside, a gift, a brick. But not just any brick. This one was gold-plated, etched with both their names. Luke Parker, Donald J. Trump, Builders of Hope. Beneath it, a note. This is the foundation. What we build next is up to them. Signed, DJT. Luke placed it in the heart of the wall. Didn't announce it. Didn't film it. Just let it sit there, where it would be found by the next kid who came looking for peace. Because the story wasn't about him anymore, or even Trump. It was about what came next. Summer came in full bloom. Families visited the Hope Builders Park like it was a national landmark. There were tour guides now, donation boxes, guest books filled with thousands of names from every state. But Luke never changed. He still wore simple clothes, still showed up early to sweep the walkways, still kept a spare brick in his pocket, just in case someone needed one. The park now had a name beyond Ohio. They called it America's Healing Ground. A former president had walked through it. Kids had cried in it. Veterans had found peace in it. And no matter how far the movement spread, this place, the place where Trump had knelt beside a boy, remained the heart. One day, Luke received a letter in thick parchment, an invitation, a groundbreaking event for the National Hope Builders headquarters. It would be built in Missouri, centrally located, a campus, offices, training rooms, a museum, gardens where visitors could build their own bricks into permanent structures. Trump had donated a large portion of the funding anonymously, but the plaque would bear two names, Luke Parker and Donald J. Trump, not as politicians, not as celebrities, just as two Americans who chose to build instead of break. At the groundbreaking, Trump walked with a cane now, slower than before, but sharp, present. He pulled Luke aside before the ceremony. "You know, when I first read about you, I didn't expect all this." Luke grinned. "Me either." Trump pointed to the crowd. "You see them? That's your America. Not the ones yelling on TV. Not the ones tweeting. These people, quiet, building, showing up." Luke nodded. "And you helped them believe again." Trump paused, then said, "So did you." They took shovels together, pressed them into the dirt, and began the first dig. Later that night, back in his hotel room, Luke sat on the balcony. The stars stretched across the Missouri sky. He held the first brick from the new site in his lap. It read, "Built on Hope." His mom joined him. "You know," she said, "he didn't have to do any of this. He could have ignored that article, could have let the story fade." Luke replied, "But he didn't." "No," she said, "because he saw something the world missed." Luke looked at her. "What?" She smiled. "You." That fall, the first Hope Builders College Scholarship was awarded in Luke's name, then a second, then 100, not for grades, not for sports, for kids who had shown kindness, who had helped someone build. The application only asked one question. What did you build when things were hard? A boy from Kentucky wrote, "I built a bench at the cemetery where my mom's buried, so people don't have to grieve alone." He got the scholarship. A girl from Detroit wrote, "I built a tower of things I survived." She got in too. Luke read every application himself. One day, he found a note tucked into a package. Inside was a small brick made of driftwood. On it, carved carefully, were the words, "Because of you, I chose life." No name, no return address. He placed it at the edge of the wall back home. Didn't say a word, just laid his hand on it. And let it speak. Years passed, quietly. The world kept moving. Headlines changed. Presidents came and went. But the Hope Builders Wall never stopped growing. Not just the original in Ohio, but the thousands across the country. People didn't talk about it every day, but when hard times hit, they returned to it. like a compass, like a map home. In the small town where Luke first stacked his bricks, a museum was built. Not fancy, just clean and full of light. Inside were photos, videos, letters. The first drawing Luke ever made of Trump, helping him kneel in the dirt. His original red brick was sealed behind glass with a plaque that read, "This started with sadness and became salvation." Luke never chased fame. He never ran for office, never wrote a book. But people still showed up every week to hear him speak. He always began the same way. Still building. Then, one autumn afternoon, Luke received a phone call from Trump's longtime aide. It was brief, quiet, respectful. "Mr. Trump would like to see you. He's not doing so well." Luke didn't ask questions. He packed a bag, flew south, and the next morning he stood outside a quiet private residence in Florida. No press, no noise, just sunlight and wind in the palm trees. A nurse led him through the back hallway to a private room. There, sitting in a recliner by the window, was Trump. Older, paler, slower, but unmistakably him. The same sharp eyes, the same posture. He looked up, smiled. "Still got that brick?" Luke nodded and pulled the worn red brick from his bag. Trump reached out, held it, turned it in his hand like it was gold. "Funny," he said. "All the towers I built, the hotels, the deals, and this little brick? This is the one I'm proud of." Luke sat beside him. They didn't talk much at first. Then Trump said, "I used to think legacy was about being remembered. But you showed me something better." "What's that?" Luke asked. Trump pointed to the window. Out there, past the hedge line, was a small courtyard. And in it, a miniature Hope Builders wall, built by Trump's own grandkids. Luke smiled. "That's your legacy." Trump nodded. "You made me a better man." They sat in silence after that. Two builders, one past his final campaign, one just entering manhood. And between them, a red brick that had started it all. Before Luke left, Trump handed him a letter. Said, "Read this when the time's right." Luke flew home. Days later, the world got the news. Donald J. Trump had passed quietly, surrounded by family. Most of the world focused on his politics, the battles, the legacy. But in Ohio, the Hope Builders Park became a place of mourning. Thousands visited. They didn't chant. They didn't protest. They just built. Brick by brick, towers of gratitude, walls of remembrance. A tower near the memory wall was built overnight. At the top was a golden brick. On it, in black script, he knelt beside a boy when no one was watching. That's what we remember. Luke waited until the crowd had gone. Then he opened the letter Trump gave him. Inside were just a few words. "Keep going. They still need you. I'll see you on the other side." DJT. Luke folded the letter, walked to the bronze cornerstone, placed the red brick beside it, and added one last message to the wall. "You built more than a tower. You built me." Then he turned and walked into the sunset, still building. Always. Years later, a new generation of kids walked the paths of Hope Builders Park. Many never knew the full story. They knew the bricks, the towers, the flags. But the boy who started it, he had grown into something else. A man now, quiet, humble, revered in a way that didn't demand applause. People just listened when he spoke, and built when he didn't. His beard was thicker, his voice slower, but his purpose was unchanged. They called him the Quiet Founder, and he never stopped showing up. Every Sunday morning, he walked the park alone, checked the bricks, smoothed the gravel, replaced faded signs. One morning, a small boy followed him, maybe 7, maybe 8, carried a little sack of bricks in one hand, dragging it like it was too heavy. Luke knelt. "What are you building?" The boy looked up. "My dad's gone, and my mom cries a lot. I thought maybe this would help." Luke reached into his own coat pocket, pulled out a red brick, the same color as the one he'd used all those years ago. "This one helped me," he said. The boy took it, cradled it, then placed it carefully at the base of a tower, wrote 2 words on it with a black marker. "Please, heal." Luke didn't speak, just placed his hand on the boy's shoulder, because that's how it all began, with sadness, and a chance, and someone who cared. Later that week, a ceremony was held at the Capitol. A new wing of the Smithsonian had been approved, dedicated entirely to the Hope Builders movement. At the center of the exhibit sat the original toy wall, preserved just as it was behind Luke's house, the dirt still clinging to the bricks, the red marker still smudged on the side that read Trump. The story was displayed in video, audio, and words written by the people it helped. One line echoed throughout the exhibit. "He didn't come to speak. He came to help." A video played in a loop. Luke and Trump, side by side, building that first wall together in silence. Children watched in awe. Adults wept quietly. One plaque summed it up. This wasn't about plastic bricks. It was about what happens when someone powerful stops, listens, and kneels beside someone who has nothing. That's how nations heal. Luke didn't attend the ceremony. He stayed in Ohio. That day, he went to the wall, knelt by the bronze cornerstone, took out a letter from his coat, worn from reading. Trump's last words, "Keep going. They still need you." He whispered, "I will," and placed a final brick. White, clean, unmarked. He wanted someone else to write the next word, because movements don't end, they pass on. That evening, the sun set golden behind the towers. The flag atop the tallest one fluttered gently. Children laughed in the background, and Luke sat on a bench, watching, smiling. The boy who built a wall to keep the sad out had helped millions let the hope in. And though the world would keep spinning, though chaos would come and go, this much was true. The wall still stood. Trump was gone. But what he started in secret, kneeling in the dirt beside a boy, was alive. Louder than any speech, stronger than any tower. And it would stand. Forever. And that's where this story settles. For now. But the wall still stands. The bricks are still being laid. And the next chapter? That's up to all of us. Because in the world Luke built, every person matters. Every hurt can heal. And no one, no matter how broken, is forgotten. Wherever you're watching from, we'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let us know what you're building. If this story of quiet strength, healing, and legacy touched your heart, be sure to like the video and hit subscribe. We share real, powerful stories like this every week to inspire, uplift, and remind people that kindness still wins. Share this with someone who needs hope today. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps us place one more brick for someone who thought no one cared. Thanks for being part of this. We'll see you in the next one. Keep building.